let's go back to basics. Really basics. This lecture is in response to a student's question about having problems getting sufficient paint onto the brush or getting enough paint onto the paper. So I thought I'd go right back to the basics just to show you and explain a few things. If you know this, then just skip this lecture. So watercolour paints are made up of pigment, which is the colour, gum arabic, which is the gooey stuff that holds the pigment together, and water, which is your solvent. Okay, if ever you are looking at paints, this applies especially to when you're doing household decorating. If the operation of cleaning the brush is with water, then they are water soluble. If the operation of cleaning the brush is a solvent, such as white spirit, then it's solvent based. That's what your oil paints are. But we are dealing just with watercolours. So what you've got here is some pigment, which is your colour, water and gum arabic. Okay, that's what holds it all together. Now these are really no different from your tubes of watercolour paint. All this is here, it's just a dry version of it. Quite often, if I run out of paint, I will squirt tube paint into the pan, as I have done with this out here. These, when the pan gets empty, all I do is squirt watercolour paint in, and what happens is that over time, leave it 24 hours or so, the water will evaporate and you'll get a solid paint. So there we are then. So 2 pots of water, one for washing your brush in and one for mixing with your colours. So you wet the brush first, okay, and then what this does when you put it onto the pan, let's use this this blue here. What it does, it is dissolving the pigment, okay, dissolving. It's mixing with the water and the gum arabic and making it liquid. Now I've gone straight with a wet brush onto the pan and I'm mixing away, hence I've got a really strong colour because there isn't much water added to the paint. Now if I go straight to my brush, put my brush straight into some water, agitate it slightly, that has now added more water to the brush, and consequently that pigment is thinned out, it is diluted. Okay, so what you want to think about is when you're doing a wash, for example, and you want a fairly pale colour, let's just clear that up a bit. Give it a clean, there we go. So if you want a weak colour, a pale colour, clean water, drop it into a palette and take a bit of pigment. See how pale and wishy-washy that is? Think about if you have a fruit juice or a cordial drink, some sort of syrup, the more water you put in it, the thinner and the weaker it gets. Add a bit more paint and it gets darker. Add a bit more paint and it gets darker still. So, use the wrong jar there, never mind. So all you're doing is you're making these paints turn from solid to liquid by adding the solvent, which is the water. Okay, now bear in mind that if you leave that there, it will in fact dry out if you walk away for a day, as this has done here. But because they're water-based, all you have to do is add water to reactivate it. That's all you have to do, okay? And also bear in mind, if you are working over a period of time, as that water starts to evaporate, there will be a stronger colour left. The pigment will have less water in it, therefore it will look darker and it will look stronger. So I hope that helps you understanding what watercolours are and how they work. It's just a question of getting the balance right between enough water and enough pigment, okay? When I say pigment, I mean the colour. So I hope that helps. If not, or any other questions, you only have to ask.